You say hi? Good job. This is the project the Munchkin and I are working on as a Christmas present for his mother. Now this is a sideboard. Got it out of the dumpster actually. This would be the bottom shelf, which is split. This is the top shelf. You can see they had some plants on it. And this is the actual desk portion. And I've done a little bit of pre-assembly, but you'll notice that I'm shy a few parts. I'm shy one of these legs, and I am shy these two turnings, which apparently fell out. I think that I missed the leg in the dumpster, and that they probably kept the turnings. So in order to rebuild this, I need to replace this leg, and then I need to replace those turnings. Now this is the blank I glued up to replace the leg, and this is oak. These are lumber dunnage. They were basically the floors of train cars. It is a white oak, and that is primarily a white oak, and I'll do my best to match the stain. But yeah, first is you got to glue her up, let it dry nice and hard. It just so happens I started this project 8 months ago, so this is probably dry by now, and I just need to take it down to the same dimensions as this. So you can see these legs are 2 1/4 square, and we'll call it 32 3/4 long. So I made up a blank. My blank is 38, and it's really wide, but that's just because it's what I had to work with. Speaking of what I got to work with, is that the stick I need? Alright, that'll make it better. Thank you. Okay, you can have it back. In order to prepare my turning stock, I dressed one edge of it with the joiner. I'm going to go about a brand new blade in the table saw, and I am going to go full depth, which I get away with because it's kind of a big saw. But yeah, I'll sneak up on the proper dimensions, making 4 separate cuts. That way the table saw has time basically to bring everything into square. And more or less I will cut every single face, just rotating it around, and by the time I get to the end, she'll be square, and everything will be happy, and unicorns will sing, much like the small child here. Ready? We gotta put our ears on. Yeah? Oh, good job. So you can already see with just 2 cuts made, we're square. So it works. And there we have our completed 2 1/4 oak blank. So I'll just cut it to length, and it can be turned straight as a lick. Okay, so I know it's 32 1/4, and I gave myself plenty of offcut. So now I'll just cut out my bad spots and trim it to length. Next I need to find the center, and as I don't actually have a centering jig, I'll just crisscross a few times and average out where the lines intersect in the middle. The final step is to come along and mark the edges of all the large features. Now I already know that my turning is not going to match precisely. I've come and I've accepted that. It doesn't really matter for this. It's a back leg, it'll be fine. So I'm just trying to get somewhat close, so maybe it isn't quite so noticeable. Final step we need to do before turning is to duplicate these cuts, which I received the tongues of various wooden components, and there are 2 of them. There's this cut here, and then there's this one, a stopped cut in the face of the actual leg. That will be slightly more difficult, but just marginally so. And I'll do that with the router. And I'll zip across that. If we're honest, I imagine I could simply trim this little bit off here, and I could put it together without it. Which I might do. We'll see. There she be. Obviously it's just a rough fit. I need to still turn the leg or whatnot, but it was just those two relatively simple cuts. Now onto the machine. I'll be the first to admit that my lathe isn't exactly stellar, but it works and it's paid for, and the procedures are basically the same. You want to tap in your drive center, slip it in, tighten up the end, and there it is, ready to rock. Now I'll be the first to admit that the last time I turned something like this, I was in high school. So I'm not the best one to teach you how to use the lathe. There are many other better qualified people than I. The process, it's kind of remained unchanged for several thousand years. So I'm going to spin it, I'm going to turn it, and I hope I'm going to match the one I already got. Obviously, as you do this, work slowly because you can't put it back. But so far, so good. Especially since it's really been 20 years since I turned anything. So seems to be pretty well centered. Seems to cut okay. I mean, it's oak, it's splintery, but it's going alright. Now just to match it, and I'm really kind of afraid of that thing, but we'll see. As you get closer, mark your low spots. Take a caliper, and I'm using this because I don't actually own a proper one, and cut all the way in and down to your specific low spots. Just go slowly, carefully, and try not to accidentally back cut and wipe out the frickin' corners on the only blank that you bothered to make up because you're an idiot. Okay, that's got pretty darn close. Close enough for what we're doing anyways. Now it's just a matter of smoothing it up with some sandpaper. In order to put the bottom shelf back together, I'm just going to use wood glue. They probably had a hide glue on there originally. It really, to be honest, for this project probably doesn't matter much. But I'm just going to work her back into a proper shape, smear some glue, and clamp it. There it is, clamped together, 3 clamps. It's a nice glue joint, I didn't have to fight it much. And then I've actually clamped what are my turning blanks for the small finials there. I actually use them as my straight edge, and that just holds the whole thing flat. Ooh, it's right. Is this for mommy? I'm right here, buddy. And the dog's inside. So as you can see, the finish is, well, failing, and it's water damaged, and it just looks a lot like shellac. I'm pretty sure it's the shellac, a colored shellac of some sort. So I attack it with this no-clog sandpaper. It's proving harder and harder to find. 3M, sorry, not 3M, Norton makes it, and that's actually a silica or silicone base, the white inside there, and it stops it from plugging. Regular sandpaper would just gum up with the heat, but this stuff, it really powers through. I love it. It's getting harder and harder to find. I'm not entirely sure why, but I love it. So this is a 100 grit, and I'll go after the whole surface with that, and I'll start in a corner, and I'll work my way out. And even with this stuff, don't be cheap with the paper. It'll drive you crazy. Just start throwing paper at the project. So what I'm doing here is actually stripping the old finish off. And what I've learned is that this isn't nearly as old as I thought it was. Not that I'm an expert, but it appears to have been coated with some sort of colored shellac, meaning there's no actual stain in the wood. So I thought I'd have a track at getting it lighter. Once again, I'm not interested in a restoration. I want to make it look the way I want to make it look, quite frankly. So on the big flat surfaces I'm sanding, and then I'm stripping on all the curved stuff, which sucks. If you can avoid stripping any sort of curved or carved or fluted thing, it's all the better. But it does work, and I using the citrus strip stuff so that I can just with water scrape it, and then do it down with a Scotch-Brite pad and scrubber, and rinse it, scrub it, rinse it, scrub it, rinse it, and it'll come slowly, but it'll come. The replacement leg is clamped in place. I'm going to let it harden overnight. As far as replacing the rung, again, I'm not so worried about the accuracy thing. I'm going to use pocket screws. I'll put the replacement bar in there. I'll pocket screw from the two directions. I believe that'll be probably stronger than what's already there. So I've opted to replace the bottom rung on both sets of legs with handmade, and I did this so that they would match. And the reason I didn't save the old one was because it was pretty shattered. So this just goes in here like this, and rather than using dowels, I'm going to go ahead and use a pocket jig. So this is a pocket jig, screws on like this. I'll drill 2 holes in that way, flip it around to the other end, and then attach it here. It'll work great. It's fast, simple, it's easy. I'd marry it if I could. And there it is, sanded and installed. Now you'll notice I did it a little larger than the original for 2 reasons. It will make it stronger, and I cut it that big, sort of by accident, and didn't notice until after I drilled the holes. So, whoops! Anyways, there she be. Okay, so we're about ready to start staining. I just take a big brush, clean it all off, nice and smooth. When I'm doing really high grade stuff, I'll get a tack cloth or some mineral spirits and keep wiping, but that's good enough for this. It's good enough for 90% of the stuff. Color on this, we're going with the classic golden oak, and because of its size, I'm just going to put it on with a brush. Put it on, let it sit, wipe it off. You know the drill. Remains unchanged. I personally prefer wood clear. I like wood, but I believe the golden oak will go a long ways towards helping even out the colors, not only between the bits and pieces that didn't get sanded far enough or couldn't be sanded far enough, but also between the old wood and the new wood. We'll know in a bit. As feared, but predicted, the legs look quite different, primarily because I wasn't able to sand off that stain. Now I'm happy with the color change on the legs. I like it. It kind of makes the whole thing look a little more old and vintage. But this naked leg, I'm not quite as pleased. I'm going to have an attempt with some dark walnut and small brushes to see if maybe I can fake some of that age over here. Let's give it a try. It's not a perfect match, because I don't have the black, but it goes a long ways towards darkening it up. So I believe it is going to make it better. So you just paint it on, wipe it off like regular stain. I'm still not satisfied. Wish I had something blacker. She just ain't cooperating. So figure I got it better. Matches a little better. That's the way it's gonna be. And there's the top shelf. All I gotta do now is start putting it together. Wow. This is always the fun part. Okay, so I've already got one side mounted up and glued. I drilled 4 new pockets there. I just reused their pockets over here after plugging the holes with some shish kebabs and some glue. And now I'm just in the process of re-drilling these new ones over here. And then because this is missing all of its attachment points, rather than attempting to drill 2 new dowels and get everything to line up, I'm just going to put a pair of pockets right there. Boom! I will say that pockets are how it was put together in the first place. So, I don't know about its age. 60s, maybe? I think it's rather new, faux old. That's my assumption. These are another good thing to keep in your box. You notice that's a regular drywall screw. That's what I use for woodworking. And then on the other side is a thicker one. So they're kind of a specialty item. You're not going to find them necessarily on the shelves at your local Home Depot, but they're fantastic. They are the same diameter as some of these old wood screws. So you can substitute them and they'll bite and hold where a regular drywall screw would simply strip out. Handy things to have in the drawer. That's what I'm going to use here. It's always a nice feeling when you get to set them on their legs for the first time, or in the case of this one, the first time in a long while. I was a touch worried that putting it back together without its drawers, which I don't have and was afraid of remaking, would make it look super duper awkward, and I just don't think that'll be the case. So obviously still get the top on it, and I haven't stained the 2 extra turners there, but we's getting close. Next big hurdle is the finish, and as you can see from the shop, getting it clean enough to spray up here, it's gonna be tricky. It doesn't look too bad. I'm not happy with some of the turnings, and we'll consider them temporary. I won't actually attach the top, and then, you know, as I get back into the swing of things, I'll make some replacements. But yeah, for something that came from the dumpster, I think that's a tremendous improvement. Used to be that horrible dark black, almost deep wood. Now it's something a little prettier. Yeah. Fun. You already see it now, just pile of baby stuff. But then we won't have the piles of baby stuff bothering us, so. Nice, nice, nice. Just the finish now. See this right here? That's why you don't work just before dinner. That's retarded. If you've never seen a pocket jig, you won't now, because I can't frickin' find this. Oh yeah, and the other side is a mirror image. But still, anyway. The shop's an effing mess because I'm lazy and no one loves me. So, yeah. I'm stupid. What the hell? I had it like 30 seconds ago.